Thanks for joining. This is going to be a series on creating a budget using Google Sheets and then taking that budget and tying it into using Google Forms and the use of a dashboard as well to see how we're tracking. The idea to do this is born from my own or our own, myself and my wife's requirements at the moment. We've gone from having 2 wages pre-baby to 1 wage now, and over the last few months I've noticed our accounts are slowly going backwards bit by bit each week, and it got to the point where it was freaking me out a little bit. So like anything that needs attention, I thought I'd drill down and really focus on it for at least a few months to see where our expenses are going and what we can do to improve the situation a little bit. Not dire circumstances, but I'm currently using eBay funds from the business to top up the personal spending, which is not ideal because it slows down business growth as well. What I like about this is that once it's set up, the form can be used anywhere. So if you go out and buy something, you can literally use the form and submit it, and it goes into the sheet, and then you can look at the dashboard later, and the idea will be for it to automatically update and you can track week to week and see where you're at. As we go along, I'll be using things like if statements and queries to help sort and organize data, and it might sound stressful, but at the very end I'll share the sheet somewhere so it can be used if you want to for yourself, and that will save you a lot of time, and then you'll be able to modify it however you want to suit your own needs, which will be good. Alright, so starting off with, this is just a rough draft of what we came up with a few days ago, and the idea is to have this either as values themselves or as percentages. I haven't decided quite how I'm going to work that yet, but we'll sort that out as we go along. And then at the end of the month, we want to work out if we have enough or we need more money still. So income, working on $1,000 a week, which is, let's say, an average wage after tax for the area I live in. And then we're going to plug in items for each of us. I'm going to use rough guesstimates for these, and then we'll see what it comes out with. So alright, so adding this up already, so these are just sums of these columns. 2 to 17, we'll make that 16, should make a difference, and same there. Okay, and these are summing G3, this one here, which we haven't done yet, and then adding all of that together, A18 to G18, which is this row here, to give us the grand total. Let's sum that. We are missing number 2, like that, and G16. So as we can see, it's summed this together here. 1, 2, 3. You can also check down in the bottom corner. It will tell you the sum. You can actually change what you want it to show as well. Grand total here is just the sum, same thing. And then we've put in $1,000 a week for our income, and we're left with minus $477 per month straight up. So to do that, we either need to, well, get more money or reduce our expenses. Okay, not the end of the world. This is just a rough estimate anyway, and obviously when you go to put these in, you'll use exact figures, which will give you the exact figure that you're working with. But what we want to do now is create the form. So go to Tools, create a form. Okay, so it's punched straight up and it's taken the title Budget Example 2020. And then we are going to track this in sections, but let's jump over here to our dashboard. So we're going to rename this as a tab to dashboard. Okay, and get rid of that. Dashboard. Help. Change that to green. Right. So what do we really want to look at? We want to split what we're spending stuff into categories, I guess, and we can also decide whether we want to enter in stuff that's recurring as well, like mortgages. We don't really want to do that, so we'll probably put in that in our form responses per month, and we could do that for the whole year, and then it will auto calculate as well, but we still want to kind of track it as well. So let's take all of these here, put them into our dashboard. Okay. I'm just sort of pasting these anywhere for now until we work out exactly what we're doing. So these are kind of general expenses, and these are sort of fixed in a way, sort of, yeah, fixed or standard sort of expenses. Okay, we're just going to make these colors a little different as we go. Alright, so going back to the form, we want to determine what we are tracking. So the idea would be to have, what are you, what expense is incurred. You can change this to whatever you want. And we're going to go here from a multiple choice. Okay, and then we can either add these, drop down. Yep, drop down. Let's make it a drop down. Okay, and one by one we're going to have to put these into the form. So I'll start with, because we're going to keep these standard expenses the same, and we're probably going to make them recurring, we'll put those at the bottom, towards the bottom of the form. The exception to this is food, pet food, and yeah, you could argue that these ones here we'll put first, because they are variable from week to week depending on what you spend, and they also have the highest sort of outlay as well. So we've got food, pet food, utilities, and rents. So we can literally just copy and paste like that. Spelling mistake, good to know. I'll fix that as we go. Okay, easy peasy. So we've got those in there. We've done them already, and now we'll go up here and do it this way as well. So we'll organize this by frequency. Okay, so phone's going to be like once a month and is recurring as well, so we'll actually put that down there. Car fuel, yep, that's pretty regular. Medical contact lenses is less often, sort of once every 3 months. Personal movies, craft, music, chocolate. Yeah, okay, so let's start at the top here. Car fuel. I'm just wondering if we need to put these ones in. So we're going to keep them fixed, but you could anyway, you could put them into the form if you want. Alright, so what that form looks like, if you click preview up the top, is just this at the moment. So that's our list, everything out. We've got an option 12 in there for some reason, which is there, so we can just delete that out. Okay, fine. What else do we want to add to this? Obviously the dollar amount spent in dollars. And we've got that down as a short answer. And we can put it down as either the number or as like a dollar amount. And we can use expressions here, so I'll leave that there. So it says this number. So if it's a number, it'll, yeah, if it's not a number, it'll give you an error text. Okay, we want it to be a number so all the actual values will work properly, so we'll leave it in there for now. And we won't worry about the dollar sign either for now. So if we go back to the preview, so food, amount spent, 200, and then we can submit it and that'll work. If we don't have, well, a number in there, it'll give you an error, which is what you want. Okay, so we're just going to close that for now. And we also think it's a good idea that we have an option to add a file. So we want to take a picture, scan a receipt, so we can track it later. Alright, we go upload receipt. And we're just going to make it a image file. You can have things like videos and other things if you want. We'll make it 5 files, maximum file size of 100 megs. This form can accept up to 1 gigabyte files. You can change that, but we're not going to be anywhere near that for a long time. I'm going to turn this on down here as required. Same thing for the amount, so we have to put an amount in, and same for the selection. And we'll also add one here for here is other not on list. That's for something that isn't on the list that we want to just track something. You can change it later when we need to. So if we go back to preview again, so we now have a required up here. So food again, 200, and then upload a receipt. It'll ask you to attach a photo, which is perfect. All right. So for sake of speed, I'm going to turn the required off on the photo upload at the moment, so I can show you the back end of that, or what's going to happen. So food, amount, all right. I'll mention here the dates. Okay, so we've just recorded an expense. So we went shopping, we spent $200 on food, and we've logged it. So where does that go? So when we made the form, it's made up its own little form responses here. Okay, so we're gonna change this name, we'll call it expense records. I didn't put a date in there because I know that it's going to make a timestamp as well, which is going to tell us the date that it was lodged. So this is good as long as you adhere to lodging everything on the same day. Otherwise, for example, if you are tracking this on a monthly basis and we put in formulas to track on a month in the dashboard, and say it gets to the end of the month and then you forget to lodge it until the next month, it'll go into the next month's figures, which could throw you out, or it'll just, it won't be truly accurate. So to get around that, you could add a date field in and select the date. So if you do happen to forget something, you can go back later, and perhaps we'll do that anyway, just in case. Probably a good thing to add. So we'll add another question, and what we'll do is we'll move this up above the other ones. Move it to the top actually. So date of expense. Okay, day, month, year, and we will make that required as well. Okay, preview. There we go. Date, what, amount, file. So date today, we forgot something, we're back to the shop and we spent $19.82. Okay, so now we have 2 records. We have the timestamp of when the form was submitted, the date, which we will drag across to here. Tells you it is Sunday the 11th of October when I'm creating this. What expense it was, food, and the amount, and then this will be the receipt, which will have a hyperlink to Google Drive that you'll be able to click on and view what it was. So that's pretty much it as far as form entry goes. So you can customize this however you want. It's pretty easy to do. Going back to what I was saying before about these recurring expenses like health insurance and the mortgage, etc., etc. So these are going to be fixed. Let's do the mortgage. So I'm actually going to put in here mortgage, and then the date we'll do the 1st of every month. So 1st of the 10th, 2020. And we're going to do 1st of the 11th, 2020. And now we're going to drag this down. So it's going to do the 1st of every month. Okay. We can check this, count 12 months. Cool. So there's our mortgage expenses for the month, and we're going to say, what do we put here? This will be this, so $1,600 a month. Done. And now we will just track this. You just do the same for everything else. So if your phone was $100 a month, then you could just do that as well. Literally copy, paste, phone, 100, and this. Okay, that was done by Control D for duplicate, in case you're wondering. All right. So I'm not going to do all of those now, just to keep it concise. So we'll move into the dashboard itself and getting some of these things happening. So let's do budget estimate per month, and then let's do October 2020, November 2020. Let's see if we can drag these across. Yeah. So there's a whole year of that. Okay. Well, let's do the fixed ones first. Now what we're going to do is, for the budget estimate, we're going to just simply hit equals, click on the other tab to track, and select that cell. That is our budget estimate that we put for mortgage. We're going to make this column into dollars, counting. Okay. And now for October, we want to use a simple query function. So equals query, brackets. When you open the brackets, it's actually going to tell you what you're going to do. It's kind of like its own little helper text. Alright, so the first part is the data, where we're going to get the data from, which is the expense records form, or the form results, which we've just populated. Then we're going to tell it what to do, and then the last bit is just whether it has headers or not. So we're going to record this like this, and all we're doing is selecting those columns. So it says expense records, which is the name of the form responses, and then the columns A to E, so the whole lot of columns. Okay, hit comma, and now I see this next bit's gone to green, which is the actual query, and it even tells you the syntax to use. Okay, so we're going to say select all, so star is all, where I'm going to go back to this form. Now we're going to find everything that is mortgage, so that's in column C. Okay, where C equals to mortgage. Okay, now that's going to give us a bunch of stuff at the moment. And the last one here, headers. We're going to put in here 1. Okay, so see how that's worked, and it's giving us all of the months because they all match column C and mortgage. Okay, so that's not where we want it. So we want just the month of October, and we only want the one value. Okay, makes sense. So we need to modify this as well to go between the dates of October, and also to limit the result just to one record, just for the mortgages, because there's only one a month. It's not always the case for other ones, which we'll be doing a different calculation of sum for. Alright, timestamp mortgage. So we're going to put and. Okay, so I paused there and jumped out into a different sheet that I had, because some of the syntax for these things can be a little annoying, and no sense reinventing the wheel when you've already got something that has done exactly what you're looking for it to do already. So I've borrowed this from a different sheet. So we're looking for C equals mortgage, and the date is between, so this is the format that it needs to be in. This number here is a date difference number. So if we if we take that number out and just type, what was it, 44197, date value 44197. No, okay, sorry, so this will tell you, will give you the date value, okay? So we want to do October anyway, so we need to work this number out because those ones I've just copied are not right. So we say 2020 dash 10th, this is an American format backwards, okay? And then the first, so 01, okay? And you see how that little blue box pops straight up, and that gives us the date value as well. So that's the 1st of October. And then we literally just copy this down, and this will be the 31st, 4135. So those are the two values that we need. All right, so we've got, and the date is greater than the 1st, so 44105, and less than 44135. Okay. Now we're still getting an error here, which is okay at the moment. We need to tell it what column the date is in, which is B for a start, not F. Okay. And we need a B there as well. Okay, so now we've got timestamp, date, mortgage amount. Okay, that's giving us all the data for that, which is that month. We only want to have this figure here, which is the match for this column, which is column D. So rather than select all, we just want to have select D. And now we've got just that figure, which is cool. But we've also got this little header here, which is useful, but not what we want. We want it on the same line, otherwise they override each other. If I was to type something here, so it'd give me an error above, because it's going to say it's going to override it. So we want to have that on the same line, and to do that we need to add a label into it as well. So we say label, and we just want it as blank, and label D. Okay, so the label D is just whatever is in here. So if this was sum D, the label would be sum D, and we'll do that on a couple of other ones in a minute, but for now that's all we need to know. Is, yeah, we make a label, and this is the label here. So if we call this is your label, that's what it is. Alright, but because we want it to be blank, this is just blank here, and now it moves it to the same line, and this becomes the same as that. So the label is the figure in this case. They still function the same, so if we were to sum these like this, it still adds them up. So that although it's a label, it's a figure and an amount, and it can still be added, which is pretty neat. Okay, so I guess it's a little annoying to have to do it manually for this, but you only have to do it once, and the dates are the same. So if we were to copy down for the phone, for example, so let's just do the phone as well. Phone. We want to see what the phone was for the month. And because we've got two, we actually need to make a new column there as well. So we'll put this here. Okay, so that'll give us a blank figure just for now. And what we're going to do is say equals A plus C3. Just gives us $100. And we'll call that accounting again. And now we've got $100 over here, which is the total for the month for both people is phone. Is $100. Okay. So now for this, because it's October, the same thing, we can copy it down, but we're going to just change this to phone. And then we've got that. Okay, so that was pretty easy for the fixed expenses, and you just repeat that with the others as well. If they were, actually, we could do, because there could be more than one phone, so that was an example of how you could copy something that was always the same. So perhaps health insurance is a better example where it's always the same every month, or rates potentially, maybe as well. If you had two people's phones that were variable based on spend, we'll have to do that a slightly different way. So the budget is still the same, so that's fine. And then because we could have a couple of records in the same month, so let's make a record as well. Okay, so if we go to preview and say, for example, next week I went and bought a phone and it actually cost me some money, we could make a new entry for phone, which we didn't put on the list. Okay, so we have to go back to this and we'll add phone, move it up there. Okay, refresh again. So next week we bought a phone and it cost us $80 for the first month. Okay, so now that's entered, we go back to this, we have the same problem as we had before. So it's picked up both records and then ordered them one under the other. But we don't want both records, we just want the total of both. Okay, so we've got phone here, obviously 180 for October, so that's what we want. So it's actually pretty easy to do, and we just go up the top into the format and put sum, and then bracket D, and then the same here for the label as well. And now we have the sum. As you can see, we're already over budget now for the month. We want to keep these formats the same. That's just a bit of OCD on my part. So you can use the format painter up the top, and now it looks a bit neater. So that's the idea for all of these as well. So we can now match these up. So equals car fuel, which is this. And if we did it smart, we could just go down the list and keep it the same, and then yeah, it should match up. For example, yeah, D6, D7, D8, see how it's all changing. So as long as these are the same, in the same order, which I think they were, no, we changed them. We changed them because that's what we did. So let's make this around this way. And a phone, D4, let's try that again because that should actually be up here, D3. Yep. Drag that down. So now when we start filling these in, they should just auto-populate straight across. Okay, so you can do the same with this. So that's just summing this and this together like we did before. And now it'll appear over here as well. So that's all our budget estimates. Alright, so these are our figures. So it's slowly taking shape. So all of these here, the phone, which we can now move this up to here because that is what it is. And there's a number of ways we can do this. So we can have a formula which compares the October or every month spend versus the budget. And then if it's an overspend, we could turn that cell red using conditional formatting, or we can make a graph and break it down by grouping. So we could group these expenses together. And then, so example, you could have contacts, medicine, medical, they're all in the same kind of thing. And then things like movies and craft and Audible are kind of like leisure expenses that can have their own category as well. So you can do it by category as well. Yeah. Right, so now that we've done all this, these are all the same. And all we need to do is go down and change phone to match whatever is in that column. And we're getting an error here because there is no record for car fuel. And so we'll fix that right now because we don't want this as an NA, because if you try and use it later, it'll give you an error because it's already got one there. So to get around that, in front of this, we're going to put if error bracket. So if there's no error, we want it to run the whole formula. And if there is an error, we just want a value of 0. Okay, which is going to give us a 0. And then now when we go to sum that again, that's actually going to work. Cool. Okay, so I'll drag that down again so we don't get the same problem. And this one here, I'm just going to copy it over it and change this back to phone. And we are good. So it's important that all of these match by case. Okay, so if we had medical, right, which we've got no value for, but if we spelt it wrong, like this, medical 1, this wouldn't pull it up because it equals medical. The way you can get around that is you can change the equals to contains, which should still pull it up. So example, let's do a medical expense. So today we went to the doctor and we spent $20 and we're done. So you can see it's auto updated straight away. And because it contains medical, that's fine, even though it says medical 1. If we change this back to equals, this won't pick up anything. Okay, so double check and either use equals or contains. Now be careful because depending on what you use for contains, so if we just use ME, you would get multiple results. So contains ME. So we've got ME. Medicine also has ME in it. Okay, so you've got to be a little careful with what you use. So they just have to match. I prefer to use equals most of the time, just so, I don't know, it's just my preference, but there are some useful things for contains as well. Going back, so we will change this to medical. That will now show up on the dashboard, which is cool. and we also need to change the form back as well. Because we copied and pasted out of the sheet into the form, you can be pretty sure that you'll be fine with the spelling. Okay, so as long as you copy and paste, you'll have no dramas going through like that. Okay. I've just switched there to the lower formula selection as well. So when you double click it, you can either use it down here or up the top. It's probably easier to use it up the top, to be honest. And you can adjust the view with the little arrow as well. Super helpful when you getting into bigger formulas. Alright, so that's all those done. And now they are good for October. So, heading into November, I'm sure you can see that individually changing things within formulas is a bit painful. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to make a new tab, and we're just going to call this working sheet. So when we go to November, if we copy here and paste here, the problem is you've still got the dates from October. Now we need to work out what the date is for November to start off anyway. So this is November and 30 days in November. Okay, so these are November's dates. We'll call this old dates. New dates. Stick with me for the moment. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to copy just one. Actually, no, we're going to copy all of them. So all of these formulas from October into this temporary working sheet here. All right, and so these ones have still got October's dates in them. We want to just take that value out. Yeah. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to find all instances of October, the first, and replace it with this number here. Okay, so if you copy that number and hit find, and say find in sheet, and it'll tell you, we find that it finds one record, but we want to find all within the formulas. So we go to more options. So just to do that again, so you can hit Control F, hit the little three dots, and we want it to find that value. And we want it to replace it with the value for the 1st of November. Okay. So if we search all sheets, it's just going to give us this one for now, but we only want it to search this sheet because we're going to replace as well. So we want to search within the formula. So it's going to search all of those, and then we're going to hit replace all. So it's done 15 spots, and we're done. So now we go back into this one, you can see it's changed from the original October date into the November one. So repeat the same process with this one here. So copy that, control find, and then we want to replace it with 44134. Just the sheet. Within the formula, replace all. Done. So now these are all good for November. Okay. And to give you an example, we could do the same thing with all of these as well. And in fact, you should finish all of these first, so you get the same result. Otherwise, you just have to go back and do it manually again later, which is a bit painful. Example. Six and 44134. Now 44136. Why does that not look right? Because it's not. We've used the wrong month, which is painful. But a good example of how you can easily fix it as well. So 44165 is actually the date that we need for the second one here. So 44. Yeah. So we're going to find 44134 and replace with 44165. This sheet. Okay, that was pretty dumb. And 44136 is first. Okay, so we'll go back to there. Now, bit of a problem there because we're not in November yet and we've already got a record. So either that formula is wrong, or when we did this before, oh no, we do. We've got a phone record, of course, from before because we had our fixed costs. So that is actually right. So there's November, and then you can manually change them if you have to. Okay. So pretty straightforward. So that's the easy way to do that, and you repeat that a few times and you've got the entire year's formulas already done. So what else could we do here? So we haven't done the food ones yet. These are still sums as well. We can drag these down, but they won't be right because they're in a different spot. Okay, so food. Let's copy these down here. Okay, that's fine. And the phone we've already got up the top, so we'll just delete that. We don't need that anymore. And now we can't quite drag them down because we need to rework where that's at. So we'll call this 100. Sorry, like that, and down. And we're done. It's fine. And we'll just change the format as well. And we can copy and paste the same thing for these as well. So you could leave it as sum, and we could even leave the sum as this one for sum, but there's only going to be one record, so it's going to be just the same. And we need to still change it. So at the moment these all say haircut. So we did do some food entries before, and let's just go do this all the way down. So like I said, better to copy and paste, otherwise you might make a error. And that still looks like that's a spelling mistake. Let's check that. So here's the form, utilities, spelled correctly, and this one is not spelled correctly. So we'll fix that, and we'll change it there as well. And then another little one. Now, I remembered from before that we entered 2 lots of food records. So the first thing my brain said when it saw that is, why hasn't it shown the first lot of food? Because there's no date there. So there's no date in there, and that's why that food record didn't come up. We could use the timestamp as well. So let's try this and see if it works. So if we used column A, would it still show up in the expenses? So using column A, so we've got select sum D where column C equals food and B. So B is the date, and we're going to change B to A. Let's see if that still works. And it does. So we can use either one. So that currently is showing column A, which is the timestamp. And because we manually entered these ones in, they don't have the timestamp. So easiest way I think for now is to just use column B, which is taken from the form, and then that way we're always using column B. So even if we put in something manually, it's still there as well. So we'll go back and change this to B. And there we are. Okay, so that's the basic layout, I suppose, of what we have. So everything that we want to modify is in these, so you can just go back and change it if you need to later. And you know, if we manage to ring up the phone company and renegotiate that contract and say, okay, now that's $75 a month, we can change it there, and it's automatically reflected in the dashboard as well. So what next? What else do we want to see? Do we want to see a chart, or just want to see the figures? If it's over budget, it'd be helpful to just see that at a glance, I suppose. We can tighten these up as well. Maybe we do that first. Maybe let's have a look at if this column is over budget, we will change it to a different color or different format. So to do that,